If someone had told me no one was coming, I'd have never baked that second cake. I still remember the smell, vanilla and chocolate, one for each of Ethan's favorites. I had balloons taped to every corner of the living room, blue, red, green. His favorite colors. The banner over the window said, "Happy 8th birthday, Ethan." In glitter letters, handmade. Everything was homemade, actually, because I couldn't afford to rent one of those bounce houses or party venues. But I could afford love, effort, time, and I poured all of it into that one day Ethan had been counting down for weeks. He circled the date on the fridge calendar, drew little stick figures of his cousins. Every night he asked, "Do you think Uncle Ben will bring the big Lego set?" I'd smile. "Maybe, you know how Uncle Ben is." He'd grin full of hope. That wide-eyed, innocent kind only kids still have. I sent invites a month early. Called everyone to confirm. My sister texted back, "Of course we're coming." My cousin, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Even my mom, who never really liked kid noise, said she'd drop in with a gift. So I believed them. That morning, Ethan woke up early. He put on his new shirt, the one with the dinosaur and party hat. He helped me arrange cupcakes into the shape of an 8. And then we waited. First hour. Nothing. I told him, "They're just running late, sweetie." Second hour. Still no cars. No knocks. Ethan stood by the window, watching. He kept asking, "When will they get here?" I didn't know what to say, so I checked my phone. Again, no missed calls. No texts, just silence. The pizza I ordered sat in boxes on the counter. The candles on the cake melted down, unused and Ethan. He stopped asking questions. He just sat on the couch, quiet, too quiet for a birthday boy. I tried to save it. I said, "Let's open presents. Just us, make our own fun." He nodded, smiled a little, but I could tell it wasn't the same I took photos anyway, because I wanted him to have something to look back on, even if it was just me clapping and him pretending not to notice how empty the room was. But what I found out later hurt worse than the empty chairs. Have you ever thrown a party or planned something special and no one showed up? I'm sending you a big virtual hug if you have. And hey, if you believe every kid deserves a full room and a full heart, consider subscribing. We tell real stories that matter every week. Let's make sure voices like Ethan's never go unheard. The next morning, I woke up still hoping there was an explanation. A flat tire, a wrong date, something, anything that made sense. I checked my phone again, still nothing. No missed calls, no texts, just the photos from yesterday, Ethan sitting in front of a cake that no one sang over. He tried to act like it didn't matter. He kept saying, "It's okay, Mom, maybe they got busy." But his voice cracked on that last word, and that hurt more than anything. I decided to call my mom. She didn't answer, so I called my sister, Laura, straight to voicemail. It was strange because the day before, they'd been texting in the family group chat about the party. "I'll see you soon," and "save me a cupcake." And now, nothing. Like we'd vanished. By afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened Facebook, and that's when I saw it. A post from my sister, a photo of everyone at the lake house. All of them. My parents, my cousins, their kids, smiling, sunburned, holding drinks. Caption said, "Surprise getaway for Emma's birthday weekend." Emma, my niece, whose birthday wasn't for another week. The timestamp? 2:14 p.m., the exact time Ethan and I were cutting his cake alone. I stared at the photo until my eyes blurred. Every person who promised to come was right there, laughing, together, without us. I could handle being forgotten. But this wasn't forgetting. This was choosing. When Ethan saw me staring at my phone, he asked, "What's wrong?" I couldn't tell him the truth. So I said, "Just tired, baby." He nodded and went back to his drawings. But later, I saw him erase the word party from the calendar on the fridge. That broke me. That night, I sat on the couch scrolling through their photos, barbecues, cake, fireworks over the water, and not a single message saying, "Sorry, we missed it." I typed out a text in the family group. "I wish someone had told me you were all busy." Ethan waited all day. Then I deleted it. Because what was the point? They knew. The next morning, I woke up to a message from my sister. Not an apology. Just, "Hey, Mom said you sounded upset. Everything okay? Everything okay?" I typed back, "You all skipped my son's birthday." She replied, "It wasn't personal. We just needed a break. Don't make it a big deal. Don't make it a big deal." That's what she said at 8 years old. His first birthday without his dad around. And not one of them showed up. And it wasn't a big deal. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I just sat there staring at that message, my fingers trembling, realizing something I'd ignored for years. I wasn't family to them. I was the afterthought, the convenient invite when they needed something, the one they could disappoint without consequence. Ethan came in holding the leftover cake. He said, "Can we give this to the neighbors?" I nodded, because he deserved kindness, even if it didn't come from his own blood. When he left the room, I whispered to myself, they'll never make him feel small again. But I didn't know then. The worst was still coming. Because just when I thought being ignored was painful, I learned what betrayal really looked like when it came dressed as family asking for money. What they asked me for next made me wonder if they ever loved us at all. It was 3 days after Ethan's birthday when my phone rang. The name flashing on the screen almost made me laugh. Lavra, my sister. For a moment, I thought maybe she'd finally realized how badly she'd hurt us. Maybe she was calling to apologize. To make things right, I answered, trying to sound normal. "Hey." She was chipper. Too chipper. "Hey, Sam. Glad you picked up. I was gonna text, but this is easier." I waited. She didn't mention Ethan, didn't mention the party. Just jumped right in. "So listen," she said, her voice sugary sweet. "We had a little situation at the lake house. Mom's car broke down, and we all had to pitch in for the repairs. It came out to about $2,350. Since you couldn't make it, we figured you'd want to help cover your part." My mouth actually fell open. "My part?" I repeated, "Lavra. I wasn't there." She laughed. "Yeah, but it was a family trip. We all share the costs. You know how it goes." I took a deep breath. "You all went to the lake instead of my son's birthday, and now you're asking me to pay for it?" There was silence on the other end. Then that same fake laugh. "Come on, Sam. Don't make it weird. We're all family here." Family. That word hit me like a slap. I tried to stay calm. "Lavra, I spent weeks planning Ethan's party. You all promised to come. You didn't even call. And now you want money for a trip I wasn't invited to?" Her tone changed, cold, sharp. "Well, maybe if you didn't always play the victim, people would actually want to be around you." That was it. The last piece of respect I had for her cracked right down the middle. "I'm not sending a penny," I said quietly. "Not one." She sighed, dramatic, loud. "Wow, you're really doing this over a few $1,000s? You've changed, Sam." And then she hung up. I just sat there, staring at my phone, shaking. Not because of the money, because of what it meant. They didn't just forget Ethan's birthday. They didn't feel sorry. They felt entitled. A few hours later, Mom called. Same tone, same fake concern. "Sweetheart, I heard you're being difficult about the lake expenses." Difficult. That word made my blood boil. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, you all skipped your grandson's birthday to have a weekend at the lake. And you think I owe you? She sighed like she was tired of me. Oh, Samantha, you always twist everything. We're family. We help each other. That's how it's always been. Help each other? I asked, when's the last time any of you helped me? Silence. Exactly, I said. So no, Mom, I'm not paying for a trip I wasn't invited to. Before she hung up, she said something that chilled me. You'll regret this, Samantha. You always do when you go against the family. Regret. The word echoed in my head long after the call ended. That night, Ethan noticed I was quiet. He climbed onto the couch beside me, his little hand resting on mine. Mom, he whispered, are they mad at us? I swallowed hard. No, baby. They're just confused. He nodded, but I could tell he knew. Kids always do. The next morning, I woke up to a new message. From Lavra. Since you're refusing to pay, we'll have to figure something else out. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder? For who? I deleted the message. Blocked her number. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Because finally, I was done being the family wallet. Done being guilted into paying for their choices. Done letting them rewrite the story to make me the villain. But that peace didn't last. Because 3 days later, someone knocked on my door. I opened it. And there they were, 2 uniformed police officers, and one of them said, Ma'am, we need to talk about a report filed against you by your family. That's when I realized they hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. They were about to do it legally. I stood frozen. The officer looked calm, but serious. Are you Samantha Rivera? He asked. I nodded slowly, my heart pounding. My son was in the living room playing with his Legos. I didn't want him to hear double quotes, yes. That's me, I said softly, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. What's going on? The officer glanced at a notepad. We received a complaint from a family member. They claim there was a verbal agreement regarding shared financial responsibility, specifically an unpaid portion of a $2,350 expense. I blinked. You're here. Over the lake trip? He nodded. They reported you for refusing to reimburse a group expense. They said you agreed ahead of time, then backed out. I nearly laughed, but it wasn't funny. It was surreal. No, I said. I never agreed to that. In fact, I wasn't even there. They skipped my son's birthday to take that trip. The second officer, younger, leaned in. Mind if we ask why they would say otherwise? I took a breath. Because they're trying to punish me. Because I said no for the first time in years. They exchanged a look. Has there been any previous legal or financial conflict with your family? I nodded. Years of it. I've paid for everything from medical bills to holiday flights. This time, I drew a line. The older officer relaxed a little. Ma'am, from what we see, this is a civil matter. There's no crime here, just a financial disagreement. Relief poured over me, but only for a second. Then he added, however, your mother is threatening to file a small claims case. That's her right. I felt like the ground shifted under me. They weren't just trying to guilt me. They were trying to humiliate me publicly. Can I ask you something? I said. The officers looked up. If I had just sent the money, would they have left us alone? The younger officer gave a sad smile. Maybe, but that doesn't mean it would have been right. They left soon after, no report filed, no warnings. Just 2 polite officers doing their job, but the damage? Already done, because my neighbors saw. Because Ethan asked, why were the police here, Mom? And I had to lie. Just a mistake, sweetie. But inside, I was breaking. They didn't care that Ethan cried at his party. They didn't care that I stayed up baking 2 cakes. They didn't care that I worked overtime to make his day special. All they cared about was money and power and control, and I had taken that control away. The next day, I got a letter in the mail from my mother. No stamp. Just slipped into my mailbox. It was one sentence. Since you've chosen to be difficult, don't expect help in the future. I stared at the paper, then crumpled it in my hand. Help? What help? I'd raised Ethan on my own. I paid every bill. I built a life from the ground up with no support. Their version of help was manipulation dressed as generosity. I wanted to cry. But I D and single quotes T. Instead, I grabbed my laptop. I pulled up my budget, made some changes, tightened things even more. I started a document called Legal Notes, Family Boundary Case. Because if they wanted to take me to court, I'd be ready. I didn't have thousands to throw away, but I had proof, screenshots, messages, voicemails, all showing they never told me about the lake trip. All showing they RSVP'd yes to Ethan's party, and I had something else. Something they didn't expect. I had a spine now. And I wasn't going to bend anymore, but just when I thought it was finally over, I got one more message from my cousin Danielle, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She said, "Hey Sam, I just wanted you to know. They're planning something behind your back. Be careful." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was war, and they weren't done with me yet. I stared at my phone, reading Danielle's message over and over again. They're planning something behind your back. Be careful. My hands started shaking. Danielle and I were never close. We'd grown up together, sure, but after college, we drifted. So for her to reach out now, after all these years, it meant something. I messaged her back. "What do you mean planning something?" She replied fast. "Your mom is telling people you stole money from her. She's calling it emotional theft." I blinked. Emotional theft? What even is that? Danielle kept going. She said you manipulated everyone into giving you things for years, that you guilted them with your struggles, your divorce, raising Ethan alone, the bills. I sat down hard at the kitchen table. So that's what this was. Not just revenge. They were rewriting the whole story. I wasn't the daughter who worked 2 jobs and never asked for help. I was the manipulator, the taker, the ungrateful one. Danielle added one more thing. She said Ethan's party was a setup, that you used it to make them look bad so you wouldn't have to pay. Tears stung my eyes. Not for me. For Ethan. He was just a kid. A sweet, funny, bright little boy who wanted balloons and cake and maybe a few cousins to play with. And now they were turning that day, his birthday, into a weapon. I typed back, "Why are you telling me this?" She replied, "Because I've seen how they talk about you. And I don't think it's fair." Then she added, "But be ready. Your mom said she's calling Aunt Lori next. And Uncle Jim. She's rallying the whole family." I felt sick. This wasn't a feud anymore. It was a smear campaign. That night, the group chat lit up again. Not the one they'd used to RSVP. No, this was a new one when I wasn't in, but Danielle was. And she sent me screenshots, messages like, "She always plays the victim. She's just mad we finally stood up to her. Maybe she needs to learn what real consequences feel like." I didn't even recognize these people. Cousins I babysat. An uncle I once drove to chemo appointments. A sister-in-law I helped after her miscarriage. Gone. All of it erased in 1 week. I wanted to scream. To call every one of them and say, "You don't know the truth." But I didn't, because I finally understood something. You can't argue with people who've already chosen their version of you. Instead, I sat with Ethan that night and read him his favorite story. He didn't know anything was wrong. He leaned on my shoulder and said, Thanks for my party, Mom. I know they were busy, but it was still fun. And that broke me. Because even in his little heart, he was already making excuses for people who didn't show up. Just like I had for years. The next day, I called a therapist. Not for Ethan, for me, because I needed someone to remind me that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't normal, that saying no doesn't make you selfish, it makes you safe. I also started writing things down. Every memory. Every time I said yes when I should have said no. Every time they joked about me being the single mom with too many feelings. Every time they called me sensitive when I was simply hurt, and I made a list of every family member who stayed silent. Because silence is a choice, too. But here's the thing I didn't expect. Danielle wasn't the only one watching from the sidelines. A few days later, I got a text from my cousin Leo. Just 3 words. I believe you. Then one from my Aunt Marcia. Your mom's twisting everything. I'm sorry. It wasn't a tidal wave, but it was something. A crack in the wall they were building around me, and then the message that stopped me cold, it was from my brother. We hadn't spoken in a year. He wrote, "You should have just paid Sam. Now look what you started." That's when I realized they didn't want the truth. They wanted obedience, and I wasn't going to give it to them anymore. You should have just paid Sam. Now look what you started. That text from my brother played on a loop in my head, and I wanted to scream. I didn't start this. You did. I didn't skip the party. I didn't send the police. I didn't spread lies or drag our family into drama. All I did was say no, but in their world, no was the same as war. And now I was the enemy. I didn't reply to my brother, not because I didn't have words, but because I finally knew they wouldn't matter. They'd already decided Samantha is selfish. Samantha is ungrateful. Samantha is making this harder than it needs to be, but let me ask this. When did defending yourself become difficult? When did asking for respect turn into causing trouble? That week, I stopped checking my phone so much. Stopped trying to explain myself. Stopped waiting for someone to finally say, "You're right. We were wrong." Because I knew that moment wasn't coming. Instead, I poured my energy into Ethan. I planned a weekend hike. Just us, no distractions. No tears. We drove to a quiet trail just outside town. Packed sandwiches, brought his sketchbook. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. He ran ahead on the trail, laughing at butterflies. I sat on a rock and just watched. Let the sun hit my face. Let the stillness remind me this is what matters. Not the group chats. Not the accusations. Not the $2,350, but peace. Peace is everything, and just when I felt it settle into me, my phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it. But something told me to look, it was an email. Subject line, notice of small claims filing, Rivera versus Rivera. I froze. Opened it, there it was. My mother's name, filed at the local courthouse, claiming shared vacation expenses and emotional damages due to slander. Slander? I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't said a word publicly. But to them, silence was slander. Boundaries were betrayal. I sat there staring at the screen, heart pounding. Ethan came running up. "Mom, look at this weird bug." I smiled, nodded, made a sound, but I wasn't really there. I was already in fight mode. They were backing down. And neither was I when we got home. I called a lawyer. A soft-spoken woman named Linda. She listened to everything. The party, the police, the messages. When I finished, she said something that hit me deep. "You're not being dramatic. You're drawing a line. And people who benefit from your silence will always be loudest when you speak." I almost cried. Not because of the case, but because someone finally saw me. We made a plan. Linda filed a response, attached my evidence, screenshots, text, the RSVP list, photos of Ethan's empty party table, but the strongest piece of evidence was the silence. Their silence when he waited. Their silence when I asked, "Where are you?" Their silence now, pretending none of it mattered. The court date was set. Just 2 weeks away, and in that time I prepared. Not just legally, but emotionally. I stopped hoping they'd change. Stopped wishing they'd wake up and say, "We messed up." Instead, I started waking up stronger, because I wasn't fighting for revenge. I was fighting for peace, not just for me, for Ethan, so he'd grow up knowing that family doesn't mean letting people hurt you. He asked me one night, "Mom, are we in trouble?" I pulled him close. "No, baby. We're in healing." He blinked. "What's that?" "It means we're fixing what others tried to break." He nodded slowly, then went back to drawing spaceships. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe, for us, it was, but nothing could prepare me for what happened the day before the court hearing, because just as I was printing the last document, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there stood my mom, holding a folder. Eyes red, voice quiet. "I need to talk to you." And just like that, the woman who dragged me to court was now standing on my porch, asking for something I didn't know if I could give. She stood there, my mother, clutching a worn blue folder like it was made of glass. I didn't say anything at first, just stared. The last time we'd spoken, she called the police. Now she was on my porch, looking tired. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice soft. I hesitated. I should have said no. But something in me, maybe old habits, maybe hope, stepped back and opened the door. We sat at the kitchen table. The same one where I baked Ethan's birthday cake. The same one she never showed up to sit at. She placed the folder down gently, then looked up. "I read everything. The lawyer's response, your screenshots, your side of the story." I nodded, waiting. "I didn't know how deep it went," she said. Her voice cracked. "I thought you were just overreacting. But I see now. I really do." I wanted to believe her, but I didn't feel ready, because apologies without action feel like air. And I'd spent enough years breathing empty air. "What do you want?" I asked, not angry, just tired. She slid the folder across the table. Inside is a statement. I'm dropping the claim. I opened it. There it was. A signed request for dismissal. I also wrote a letter to the rest of the family, she continued, telling them I was wrong, that none of this was your fault. I stared at her, shocked. This wasn't what I expected, but I still didn't speak, because I needed to hear more. She took a deep breath. "I know I can't undo the pain, but I also know it's time I stopped pretending I did nothing." And then she did something I never thought I'd see. She cried. Not dramatic tears, just quiet ones, the kind that come from deep shame. "I was so afraid of losing control," she whispered. "So I clung to it, even if it meant losing you." That part hit me hard, because for years I'd begged for understanding, begged to be heard, begged to be seen, and now, when I finally stopped begging, she showed up, but I didn't let myself melt just yet. "I appreciate this," I said carefully, "but a letter and a signature don't erase the damage. Ethan still remembers who wasn't at his party, and I still remember who sent the police to my door." She nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I'm not asking for your forgiveness." She looked up, eyes steady now. "I'm asking for your boundaries. Whatever they are, I'll respect them. That." I didn't expect boundaries from the woman who used to say, "You don't say no to family." I exhaled, then said the words I never thought I'd say. "Right now, I need space." Not forever, but space. She nodded. I'll take it. Thank you for letting me in, even for this moment. She stood up, wiped her face, and walked to the door. At the edge of the porch, she turned and said, "Tell Ethan I'm sorry, deeply." Then she was gone. The house felt still. Not heavy, just still. I looked at the folder again, ran my fingers over the signature dot. It was real. The case was done. The war they started was over, but peace. Peace would take time. That night, I didn't cry. Didn't smile either. Just sat with the truth. I had protected myself. I had stood my ground. And somehow, in doing that, I changed something, not just in them, but in me. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I just needed to live in truth. And the truth was, I was finally free. But the next morning, I woke up to something I never saw coming. A new post in the family group chat. From my aunt, a video dot of Ethan at his party, sitting alone at the table, waiting dot with a caption that said, "I didn't know, but now I do." And just like that, the silence broke and something else started rising. Truth. And not just mine. The video played in silence. Ethan, sitting in his little birthday hat, one hand in his lap, the other holding a balloon string, the cake untouched, the banner behind him drooping a little. No laughter. No cousins. Just the sound of a ceiling fan and my own voice in the background, trying to stay cheerful. I don't even remember who took the video. Maybe it was instinct to capture a moment that felt too strange, too quiet. But now it was in the family group chat dot, and suddenly everyone was talking. I didn't know no one showed. Why didn't anyone say something? Wait, she was alone? Why didn't we go? Why did we believe Mom? One by one, the silence began to unravel. Aunt Lori was the first to message me directly. "I'm so sorry, Samantha. I had no idea. I thought someone else was going." Then Uncle Jim, "I feel awful. I thought you were just doing something small. That's what your mom said." It kept coming. Apologies, excuses, regret. I didn't reply right away. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I needed to feel it, to sit with the weight of it dot, because for months I thought I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that maybe they were right to be upset, but now the video made it undeniable. There he was, my son, waiting, and somehow seeing it through their eyes brought me a strange kind of peace, not because it erased what happened, but because it confirmed what I knew all along. I wasn't the problem. That night, I tucked Ethan in and kissed his forehead. He smiled and said, "Mom, can we do another party next year? Just us." That was fun. And my heart broke all over again, not because he remembered the hurt, but because he didn't. He remembered the love. The next day, I got a message from Danielle. Just one sentence. "They're finally listening." I typed back. Took long enough. Then added, "Thank you. You didn't have to speak up, but you did." She replied with a heart emoji. That was all. But it meant more than any apology dot. Later that week, I posted something on my own social media. Not to shame anyone. Not to seek attention. Just a photo of Ethan's birthday cake. One candle lit, no one else in the frame. Caption, "We waited." No one came, but we sang anyway. It got shared more than anything I'd ever posted. Strangers messaged me saying, "This happened to me too. My family missed my graduation. My parents forgot my daughter's birthday. I thought I was the only one." It became more than my story. It became a mirror for others dot, and that's when I knew I wasn't alone. I never really was. There are so many people holding their breath in family silence. So many moms like me pretending it didn't hurt. So many kids like Ethan learning too early what it feels like to be forgotten. That maybe the forgetting ends with this dot, maybe the truth, even when late, still matters because even if that group chat had stayed quiet, I still would have shown up. For Ethan, for myself, Dot, and even now, with the apologies rolling in, I wasn't planning a family reunion. I wasn't rushing to open my door, but I was opening something else. My hurt dot not for the ones who left, but for the ones who stayed. The quiet friends, the kind strangers, the people who said, I believe you, when no one else did. Still, one message caught me off guard dot. It came from a block number. No name, just a text that said, do you think he'll ever want to see me again? I stared at it, and I knew exactly who it was, not my father. And suddenly, the one person I thought was gone forever was reaching out, not to me, but to my son. That message hit me like a wave. Not angry, not desperate, just strange. Do you think he'll ever want to see me again? It sat on my screen for a full minute before I moved. My father, the man who hadn't spoken to me in over a year, wasn't asking about me. He was asking about Ethan Dot, and for a split second, I wondered if this was the part in the story where everything made sense. Where people changed. Where old wounds got stitched up, but I've lived too much life for fairy tales. Still, I didn't block the number. Didn't ignore it. Instead, I took a deep breath and wrote back. That's not my decision to make. But it starts with you showing up for the right reasons. He read it. Didn't reply. Not right away. Days passed. Then a letter arrived. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter, handwritten, 3 pages long. He told me he'd seen the video in the family chat. That he had no idea Ethan's party had gone like that. That he trusted what he was told and didn't question it. I was wrong, he wrote. I thought I was standing with the family, but I was sitting in silence. And silence hurts more than words sometimes. That line stuck with me. He said he didn't want to take up space in our lives again. Just wanted to ask if I'd give him 1 hour to talk. No pressure. No promises. Just talk. I sat with it for a while. I asked Ethan what he remembered about Grandpa. He shrugged. Not much. He used to bring donuts. He liked cinnamon ones. Then he went back to coloring, and I realized something. The past had shaped me, but not him. Not yet, Dot, so I made a choice. I told my dad to meet me at the park. Middle ground. Neutral space. Somewhere with swings and space to walk away, if needed. I told Ethan, Grandpa wants to see you. Only if you want to. He thought for a second, then said, will he bring cinnamon donuts? I laughed. Told him maybe Dot, so we went. The sun was just setting when we got there. Orange and soft. A few kids still on the playground, and there he was. Sitting on a bench with a small white paper bag. Ethan ran ahead, curiosity beating caution. I watched them from a distance. Watched as he handed Ethan the bag. Watched my son smile as he pulled out a donut Dot. It wasn't a big moment. No hugs. No tears. Just a quiet offering. I sat down beside them. He looked older. Not just in years, but in eyes. Thanks for coming, he said. I nodded. Ethan munched happily. I didn't come to ask for anything, he added. I came to say I'm sorry, and I should have said it a long time ago. I didn't reply right away, because for years I wanted that apology. Now that it was here, it didn't fix everything, but it did loosen something. I don't need you to fix the past, I said quietly. I just need you to not rewrite it. He nodded. I won't. Ethan ran off to the swings. My dad watched him, then turned back to me. You're doing an incredible job with him. I blinked, surprised. I mean it, he added. He's bright, kind, strong. That's all you. There was something in his voice. something that didn't ask for credit, just gave it. I looked at him for a long moment. You hurt me, I said. I know, he replied. And you stood by while others made me feel crazy? I know, he said again. No excuses. No defense, just truth. We sat in silence for a while. The kind that doesn't sting. The kind that gives space, and when Ethan came running back, face sticky with sugar and laughter in his voice, I saw it. The moment that told me this wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about choosing what came next. My father stood, wiped his hands. Thank you for giving me this hour, he said, then turned to Ethan. Can I see you again sometime? Ethan looked at me. I gave him a soft nod. He smiled. Only if you bring the cinnamon ones. My father laughed. And for the first time in years, so did I, as we watched him walk away. Ethan leaned on my arm and asked, is Grandpa part of the family again? I looked at the sky, thought for a second, then said, we'll see. But for now, we're building something better than family. And just when I thought that chapter had finally closed, the doorbell rang with a face I never thought I'd see again. The doorbell rang. It was just past noon. Ethan was in the backyard, making mud pies and yelling about being a dirt chef. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door, and there she was. My sister, hair done, nails perfect. That same look on her face, the one she wore at Ethan's party. When she didn't show up, she didn't say hi, just raised her brows and said, wow, you look different. I stayed in the doorway, didn't invite her in. She looked past me into the house, then held up a white envelope. I came to return this, she said. Inside was a check, $23.50, uncashed. I don't want it anymore, she added. I figured since you made such a big deal out of it, you'd want it back. Her voice, still sharp, still smug, but something about her eyes looked tired. I took the envelope. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. She shifted, then said, you know, everyone's talking about how you went and made this huge deal online. That video, the posts, the letter from Mom. You turned the whole family into a circus. I blinked, laughed softly. Funny, I thought I turned silence into truth. She rolled her eyes. You always did love being dramatic, and you always loved disappearing when it mattered, I said quietly. I guess we both stuck to what we know. She folded her arms. I didn't come here to fight. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me. Then what did you come for? She paused. Something flickered in her face, regret maybe, or just pride cracking. Ethan's birthday is coming up again, right? She asked. I got him something. A big Lego set. Figured I could drop it off. I shook my head. No, her eyes widened. Seriously? I'm not keeping him from family, I said. I'm keeping him from confusion, from inconsistency, from being hurt by people who show up only when it's convenient. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, you think you're better than us now? I smiled softly. No, I think I'm just finally better to myself. She scoffed, started to turn, then looked back, whatever. You've always been sensitive. And with that, she walked down the steps and drove off. I stood there, holding the envelope. The check. The apology that WS in single quotes T. And I didn't feel angry. Or sad. I felt clear because once upon a time, I would have begged her to come in. To stay. To be different but now. I didn't need her to be anything she wasn't. I just needed to keep my peace intact. Later that day, I gave the check to a local mom who was fundraising for her son's school project. That money didn't belong in my house. It never did. Instead, I made Ethan's birthday list. Just the two of us again, with maybe a few kind friends. No pressure. No pretending. He told me he wanted a dirt cake this year with gummy worms. I said, done. That night, after he went to bed, I lit a candle and opened my journal. The same one where I wrote the day everyone ghosted his party. I flipped to a new page and wrote, they ghosted our party. We built a new table. And the view? Better than I ever imagined. I closed the book and smiled, not because it was perfect, but because it was peaceful. Final reflective question for comments. Have you ever had to protect your peace, even from people who share your blood? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you chose yourself.